Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Timberborn, episode 22. We managed to save them on the last episode, which was really exciting. I didn't think that we were going to, but we managed to save them and we managed to fix the resources. We still have a bit of a problem with that when it comes to logs, mainly because we've got over 200 in this episode. They do hit over 250 beavers, and they seem to be hovering around that mark, 250, 235. That's how many there will be through a drought. Remember, our droughts can last up to 130 days maximum on this playthrough, and if they run out of water and run out of food, there's not a lot I can do. But from now on, I can't turn those birthing pods off. I've updated the rules in the description with what we've been discussing about the last couple of episodes. But here we are. We should celebrate what we've got. We've got that great central piece in the middle. Now, on this episode, I'm really confused with this central piece. It's just not putting water into the reservoir, and I'm very confused why. And by the end of this episode, I realized just as a drought hits us. More on that later. If you watch the long playthrough, boy, I keep going back to it. I am just confused why it's not working, and that might be my downfall, because I was trying to work it out for so long and I forgot I turned the water pumping stations off. But more on that later. Let's come back to that. Let's see what we did. Now, one of the things that's important is making sure that Reservoir 3, sorry, I misspoke, Reservoir 2 gets as much water as it possibly can. And the only way we're going to do that is increase the amount of pumps that are on the front of it. And I made a mistake with the design of this. I thought I could put those pumps behind the new power bar that I made, and I made that new power bar because of the food district. That power supplies all of the food district on the front there. So we had to create a diversion for it to keep power going to the food district while we work on adding more of the pumps. And it turned into a real puzzle on how are we going to get the beavers to build it. We had to create silly paths. We had to create extra scaffolding. I think the solution that we came up with was the best one in this circumstance, but it was the only way that we could divert the power. And this is temporary, by the way. Once the new pumps go in, it will go back to a much cleaner design at the front. Now, I removed all of this power chain at the front so I could build the new pumping stations later on, totally forgetting that it's supplying the pump there at the bottom, which is supplying the water to the food district, but more on that later. Right now, this was the setup of a way to create a new diversion so we could work on those pumps. I made them critical build because I honestly thought that with those new water pumps, we would get the water up to a high enough level that it could actually start working. But as you'll see if you watch the long playthrough, it's just a mess. It's a really obvious fault that's happened there. So anyway, we moved across to the metal district and this nightmare underground metro tunnel. I wasn't going to sit there and build each individual piece for this. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to dig a hole down to that level and allow the beavers to use dynamite to blow that whole run out and build the metro really quickly. Otherwise, what you end up doing is building one piece, wait for an explosion, build another piece, wait for an explosion, build another piece. It takes forever, and I can't be bothered, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch that either. So we create a simple staircase down to the base, and they're going to be able to access that tunnel, and they'll use dynamite, they'll blow all that out, and we'll be able to build that metro much quicker. Now, in doing that, I thought, well, how am I irrigating this land with water from Reservoir 3? And there was a few fixes that I had to make, and I decided, well, I may as well design the rest of the water irrigation for this area. So we started to plot that out where the water cascades down onto this level, and then it comes back round. But then I thought I could do that design that we worked out on the crater, where if you build an underground water tunnel just inside the line of the next layer of rock, it will still irrigate the land, but we're not using a tile of good soil to do it. So we follow the path all the way around, and eventually that brings us to the dam for Reservoir 3. I'm really not sure how this area is going to work. At the moment, it's just a theory that we'll contain water in here, but Reservoir 3 is so far away from being constructed. It's going to be one of those things where it will work or it won't. I'm kind of hoping it does, because if it doesn't, it's going to make a real mess of Metal District, and we need those metal bars. And in fact, on this episode, we are running really low on scrap metal, and that's because the mine is not currently working very efficient, because we're wanting to build our underground extraction factory where the centrifuge's going to go, and it's going to take a long time. I've made this quite complicated, which is why a lot of the conversations on past videos have gone away from this is not really in the spirit of a permadeath anymore. It's turned into one of my insane builds. That was always going to probably happen, but we've learnt a lot on the way here, and I think to move this forward, we are going to have to build our own permadeath map. And within that map, we will put the rules in place, and probably what we'll do is start to build the monument immediately and give them something to continue working on while we try to keep them alive. But I think a permadeath series probably shouldn't go any longer than 20 cycles, and I might put a time limit on it that if it gets to 20 cycles and it's not done, then it's a fail. But we'll work that out when that happens. We are still trying to keep these guys alive, and I promise you, I won't just allow them to die because I got bored of them. We are going to do it properly. And this episode was a bit of limbo. You can see it is. I'm going around fixing little problems. I'm making sure it's all working properly. And part of that was I just couldn't work out why this dam wasn't holding water. It just wouldn't take more than 4.5. And I just didn't know why. So I thought, okay, well, I'll turn off the water pumping stations and see what happens, where this water is getting out. And then I left it because I did other things, and I probably shouldn't have done that because of what happens at the end of this episode. But I'm not going to Titanic this episode. We will carry on discussing what we did. As again, there was a lot of management stuff, a lot of making sure the beavers were just getting food, getting water, and everything was flowing the way it should. And one of the theories that I had was maybe the water's just not getting out of here quick enough. Maybe it's pumping so much water in. I don't even know why I thought this. Now I know what the problem is, but now I think about it, it was a silly idea. So I thought, the pumps at the back are struggling. There's so much water in the trough, they are stopping and starting, so they weren't really being 100% efficient. And the way that could be fixed was get the water out of this trough as quickly as I possibly could. We created this design of a new aqueduct that is a little bit silly, but it stops damaging everything that's below it. And we created another place for the water to flow out of the trough and into Reservoir 1. And it does help. It does help throw the water. It does mean that the pumps at the back can run at 100%. So it wasn't a total pointless effort. In the future, when the south side opens up, it's not going to be a problem. In fact, we create a new problem, which is how I thought this was going to work anyway. I thought that there were so many pumps there that the game could not possibly keep up with the amount of water coming into that crater, and we're going to work out how many pumps we actually need to make that a success. So at this point, they'd built the power chain to divert the power into food so we could remove the problem areas and start to put more pumps in. But in doing this, I had destroyed the power chain that was running the pump at the bottom there. You can just see it bottom left. And I don't realize that until later when food totally dries out. And it dries out because that is the pump that is supplying water to it on day one. You've probably noticed right now, I don't really think a lot before I do things. Like, it's just more, well, we'll try it and see what damages it does down the path. And there's another instance of this change here ruined the supply chain of building materials up to Reservoir 3, which I think I'm just about to point out. We work out that it just says there, it can't get material there. And it can't get material there because the path is disconnected because of the new power chain that I built. And I thought, well, this is quite a long way from the district anyway. And we have a metro line that runs at the back, and the beavers can build out of that metro line. And what you're seeing here is the basic foundation for a metro station, where the beavers can build this from the metro station. They don't need to use the path. And eventually they build all this and we build a new metro station, which will get material to that back area much, much quicker. And it's probably something that should always existed. As well as doing this, I realized that there was no sluice gate on the back of this and just dealt with that now. And I put an in and out on it. I don't know if I'm going to need that. I might destroy it later on, but for now, water can go in to the aqueduct and it can go out of the aqueduct with this design. I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to leave that and come back to that later. And they finished it pretty quickly, the new aqueduct that takes the water from our trough into Reservoir 1. And here we are basically just finishing it off and making sure it flows in and creating another entrance for water. I was actually quite lucky that it didn't flood anything, that was all solid. And I reconnect the path and then we let the water go in. Now instantly it fixed the pumps at the back, so they were now able to work at 100%. There was no hold up. But it didn't solve the problem. The water was still, I mean, it was going in quicker than it was before. It was always going to, but it just wasn't filling up as quickly as I thought. And I even made a comment that I'm pretty sure the developers are so intelligent on this. I couldn't have found a bug or glitch on this. And it's interesting again watching this now, because for 2 episodes I've been talking about this problem on this reservoir, and when I work it out, it just kind of hit me in the face. And it'd be interested if any of you guys worked it out earlier. But I also work out that the water up there only has one path that's bringing it in, so we are going to need to build another metro station up there. And in fact, that might be the first job on the next episode, to get a metro station up there so they can get to the water quickly. The problem with this build is I built it so fast, I didn't really think about what I was doing at all. It was all very much reactionary because of the permadeath thing. And this always happens when you build. You end up having to retrofit a lot of stuff after it's in, and it causes a lot of problems. I decide to replicate the design of the trough aqueduct on the other side, so we would then have 3 places where the water off the trough can access Reservoir 1. At this point, still thinking that this was the problem. It's a better design to get the water out of there as quickly as it possibly can, and it looks pretty impressive when it's done. But again, I should have just stopped and thought about what I was doing, and we would have worked this out a lot sooner and might have avoided something that is going to happen down the video. But again, we're nearly there. We're near the end of this episode. As you can see, it was quite a long run. And it's just lots of little things, a lot of little things that needed doing. And as part of little things that needed doing, this was the problem. Basically what was going on at the bottom of our reservoir, we'd built the sluice, but I'd forgotten to actually put the sluice gate in to stop the water getting out back into the crater. So the water was pumping into Reservoir 1, and then it was going out of the bottom of Reservoir 1 back into the crater, which kept the level of the water in the crater at a height that it didn't need any new water to come in. And that was the problem. It was just recycling all of this water, and it only look how fast that water's coming out the bottom of that reservoir, look. So I turned that off, and very quickly, all of those pumps took all of the water out of Reservoir 1 and dried it out. And this is what I was expecting it to do all along. I didn't think that this many pumps would be a good idea, because it would just drain the crater, and it never did it, and it confused me. And it's basically because I had the sluice gates open on the bottom of the reservoir. And that was the problem. And then a bad tide came. Not only did a bad tide come, it's 97 days. It is a 97-day bad tide. We are not allowed to turn the birthing pods off. They now have a lot of food, so they're not going to die of starvation to bring the numbers down. They don't have a lot of water. So I'm concerned. I think we might have to do some management on the districts. Food can supply itself with water, so really it should be self-sufficient, and I can stop the import and export of water from the main district to it. If you read the rules, it was always from day one that I can control the resources that go into districts. So we might play that rule. Now, a rule that I can't remember, and I think I said it, and if I didn't, we need to consider it, is when a drought happens, we are not allowed to migrate beavers. Now, that rule's important because technically I could migrate a load of beavers over to food or metal, but I think that would be classed as sacrificing them, because I know what will happen. They won't survive because all the water run out, and I've reduced the amount in another district which I know will be able to survive because they've got 26,000 water. So I think that does need to be a rule. But anyway, on the next episode, we're going to get stuck into this drought. We're going to manage it. We're going to try and keep them alive within the rules. And we're going to build a new district. And we're going to keep going. I hope you're enjoying the series and seeing this insanity. And I hope to see you in the next one. So until then, take care.